Hi, my name is Britt Gilman, and I'm the Research Project Analyst at the Deep River Public Library. Since 2022, the Deep River Library and partners have been co-leading this local history project titled Not Born from a Virgin Forest, Deep River and Area's Earliest History. The title of this project is derived from early recorded accounts of Virginia Adams Hunt, who proposed that the area that we now call Deep River had housed families for decades prior to the arrival of the town, and therefore Deep River was not born from a virgin forest. This project was started in response to requests to expand understanding of life in our area prior to 1945. I'd like to thank our partners, the Schoolhouse Museum, the Laurentian Hills Library, Professor Stephanie Adams, Alex Stevens of Deep Tech, the Deep River District Community Foundation, and to the New Horizons for Seniors grant, who generously funded this project and made our work possible. Enjoy.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you guys for coming tonight to our event called History Through Music. This event is a part of the Library and Partners local history project called Not Born from a Virgin Forest, Deep River and Area's Earliest History. Since last September, the Deep River Library, along with partners Laurentian Hills Library, the Schoolhouse Museum, and other individuals, have been completing an ongoing research project to compile oral histories of those who lived in our area pre-1945. Tonight we are so excited to have Marc Audet join us and show us just how history and music intersect. We're looking forward to hearing his stories through song and hope that the music will inspire you to think about our area's rich history and the stories you might have that are not yet told. I'd love to introduce Marc, and then we'll invite him to serenade us away. Marc Audet is a folk singer-songwriter from the Ottawa Valley, whose songwriting interests include writing about the history and heritage of the Ottawa Valley. His shows blend great songwriting and storytelling, creating a captivating and immersive experience for listeners. His unassuming stage presence, which we will get to review tonight, projects a serenade and introspective setting, much like the territory that he sings about. There's an authenticity in his music that draws listeners in, connecting with truth in music. Marc is a very active musician, performing wherever opportunities present themselves, like tonight. And since launching his folk music act in 2014, Marc has performed close to 400 times. And also to his credit is a 2019 studio album titled The River. A second studio album is currently in the early stages of recording, and Marc Audet has something to say always musically. So thank you, Marc.
Thanks very much. I'd like to start off just acknowledging that we are on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe. Did I get that right? I always have trouble with that. Especially important to me to acknowledge that because the songs I do, the history that I speak of is only the most recent history. And I wish I could speak to the thousands of years of history before us Europeans came and got active with farming and logging and that sort of thing, but maybe that'll come. But anyways, so I'm going to start off with a song that is about the Ottawa River, which is right behind us here, and about the fur trade. And what amazes me about the fur trade is that it went for like 200 years. For 200 years, there were battalions of canoes traveling from near Montreal all the way up to Thunder Bay, and their day would be like they get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they paddle for 3 hours, and then they have breakfast. Then they paddle for 6 hours, they have lunch. Then they paddle for 6 hours, and they set up camp. And they did that for, I think it was 6 weeks to get to Thunder Bay. And portage number 14 is just up the river here at Rolfton, and that was one of the least favorite portages of theirs because of the nature of the terrain and the length of the portage. But and this section of the river here was called the Deep River, which is maybe why they called this place Deep River. But in the records it's called the Deep River, and because it's deep, I guess. Anyways, so here's a song called La Rivière, and it's my song about the fur trade and how these guys did it is kind of beyond me, but the river flows from north to south, from streams of slight to never doubt. Upon this route come fleets of force, carrying furs of size from the lands of north. Tales of wild times of blight, endure the cold to sleep at night. Crates of supplies carried over land, hardship bared, traditions ran. This is the blood of our ancestral past, times of frontier, times of first flight. Tracks of these men are marked in the stones of the riverbed washed by ages of flow. From Thunder Bay to Montreal, among the Manitou and the Mattawa, the Outaouais brought sense of home, charging south as winter fell. This is the blood of our ancestral past, times of frontier, times of first flight. Tracks of these men are marked in the stone of the riverbed washed by ages of flow. And as they dug their paddles deep, came songs of march, surpassed defeat. These songs still sound in echoes round the river bend, past the point of south. This is the blood of our ancestral past, times of frontier, times of first flight. Tracks of these men are marked in the stone of the riverbed washed by ages of flow. Of the riverbed washed by ages of flow. Of the riverbed washed by ages of flow. Thanks very much. It amazes me, you know, the length of time, for 200 years that was going on. You know, that's a long time. That's like 7 generations of people that were doing this, and really. The next song I'm going to do is I spend a lot of time on the Des Moines River lately because there's a historic trail that I'm a part of that we're opening up this amazing hiking system of new campsites, and there's river drive camps and lumber camps that we're turning into historic sites with interpretive plaques that tell you the story. And we're trying to research these sites, which isn't easy because there's very little history that we know of. But we also intend to include the story of the Algonquin people who traveled up and down that river for thousands of years as well. We're trying to tap into the knowledge of the Wolf Lake Nation. So we're hoping that works out and we can add to the story of the Des Moines Valley. But this next song is called River Drive Dance, and it's a song I wrote about the river drive on the Des Moines. And when we were building some of our campsites, I remember I was building a fire pit for a campsite, and I dug up one of the tools they used. And then you look at the river where this was, and it's a corner. That's where the logs would have piled up. It would have been a place where they traditionally had problems with the logs. And then you look in the bush, and you can see where they had brought the horses and sleighs down there to access where these troublesome parts of the river were, and that sort of thing. So it's so neat walking and seeing the history of this one area, and slowly piecing together the story. And so this song is about that. It's about the river drive from Grand Chute down all the way to the Ottawa River, and hope you like it. On a boulder and stone-laden shore, where their boats pulled in with resting battle oars, was Grand Chute Camp, 4 buildings, 10 cribs. We were sorting logs as they floated in. The log chute ran long past the drop, 3,000 feet for the very best logs. Sometimes we stood at the log jam bends, with their poles and boots, us river drive men. When the call came in on the telephone line about a log jam, so now our time, it's time to go. From Grand Chute Camp, south we run with river drive boots and long pike poles, and then some. Flooded shoals, an ice cold drink, fast moves on feet, no time to think. A skill we had still left a chance. Came the legend of the river drive dance. With dynamite loaded in the log jam pile, 7-minute fuse seemed to take a while. Get ready then. When the log jam gives, we're back on course. The corner boats helping, working shore to shore. Keep it moving, men. From the April melt, I ran with my men. From Grand Chute to the foes at the end. On the wagon road we did run, to chase the logs, long days, wet fun. When the drive was done, it was time to go back home, to the farms we ran with pay for our loans. But some men, well, didn't make it out. Their time had come, there was no way to help. So we nailed their boots to the nearest pine tree, and we counted our blessings. It was plain to see what the river took. But we had to move on, there was no time to waste. We kept the logs moving with cautious haste till the dive was done. 61 was the last river drive. Trucks hauled logs in a fraction of the time. It marked the end of our river driving days. With their boots and poles, we went our separate ways. I stand on shore, imagining back then, the dance of those river drive men. Fast feet, keen eyes, those river drive men. I long to see the river drive again. Thanks very much. I'm eager to get back up the Des Moines River, but waiting for the Holden Lake Reservoir to get back up and so I can watch a boat. But I spent the last week actually exploring lots of sites around this area, and with the warm weather we've had and the absence of bugs, it's just been fabulous. And it's so nice to have a time of the year where you can go off and roam around the bush, and with all the leaves not yet on the trees, you can see things really well. You can see the imprints of old buildings and that sort of thing. You can see the old trails that are pounded into the earth from people before. And so anyways, it's just a great time to be around. And so this week I've seen river drive camps, logging camps, depot farms. We've discovered a part of a wagon road up the Cheyenne River that I've never seen before. That's spectacular, the way they cut into this gravel bank. It's just remarkable how they made these roads. And I want to go over there and clear it out and then spread the word so people can go take a look at it themselves. But the Ottawa River is it's been the way it is for years, for 10,000 years, I guess. But as some geologists here know about glaciation and that sort of thing, but it dramatically changed in the 1940s when they built the hydroelectric dams at Rolfton, and that affected the communities of Mackay and Stonecliff and Doravere as well. And so this next song is called Holden Pond. It's about the flooding of the villages up there and how it affected people. And I'm a scuba diver, so I've actually sat on the front steps of the church. It's under 20 feet of water, and sat, and you could feel the wear of the people that had walked up and down the church steps for 60 years and that sort of thing, you know, weddings and funerals and weekly services and that sort of thing. And it was weird, the dull orange glow of the Ottawa River above you, you could barely see, but it was so neat to sit there. That's where this song came from, was just sitting there with the thought of this church. And so here we go. This is called Holden Pond, and it goes out to the Stewarts and the Spencers and the Charbonneaus and the Tates and the Paquettes that were displaced by the floods. And same thing happened down lower sections of the Ottawa and St. Lawrence as well. You know, 1960s and 70s were a popular time for making electric power. It was time, they said, for progress to be made. A survey done back in 1929. Farms and towns and even lakes and streams, they were all to be given to my dreams. But I will never forget my land. My feet still feel the stones and the sand. I will never forget my land. I still see the patterns on her hand. Landscapes seen by peoples long have passed. For thousands of years the deep valley cast the sounds and smells and sights of age. The time had come with promise and with wage. But I will never forget my land. My feet still feel the stones and the sand. I will never forget my land. I still see the patterns on her hands. Every day the waters rise, cold steel blanket our demise. Friends afar and distant cries, forever gone under blackened light. The church steps rest, the fences and the roads, empty fields and our hearts of heavy load. The houses moved and new plots to be had. The spirit stayed and their absence left us sad. But I will never forget my land. My feet still feel the stones and sand. I will never forget my land. I still see the patterns on her hand. Every day the waters rise, cold steel blanket out in eyes. Friends are far and distant cries, forever gone under blackened light. Forever gone under blackened light. Yeah, that's not a protest song, by the way, because I love having hydroelectric power. But it does sadden me. I mean, if you remember seeing the photographs of Edward River up there before it was dammed, it's something to see. It's really quite remarkable. The rapids were tremendous. The waterfalls, just a crazy, crazy river. And I dream of the day that they have to empty the dam, empty the reservoir somehow, and we could proceed again, see it for the first time. But there are pictures you can look at, so you can study things, and you can study the rapids and pick your line if you want, if you're into that. Go back to the topic of logging, and so just a little further up the river is a place called Deux Rivières, and there's a road that goes into a place called Brent, and it's called the Brent Road. Halfway between Deux Rivières and Brent is a stopping place in a depot farm called Halfway House. And as far as we know, this was built by a lumber company and manned or operated by different people, but Xavier Pilon is the name of the fellow that ran it for a good length of time. And there was a post office there that had different postmasters, and we were there, I was there with a friend a few days ago and roaming around the fields and looking at the rhubarb that's still growing there. And we dug up some rhubarb actually and planted them in our yard here, Deep River. So now we have this Pilon rhubarb from the 1800s. It's delicious to eat and that sort of thing. But anyways, this farm is quite interesting. And when you look on the old Algonquin Park maps, you'll see it marked there, and with the post office symbol and all that stuff. And Xavier he had 4 kids, 2 daughters, 3 daughters, and a son. And back then, of course, living wasn't easy to do because there was no real good medicine, and doctors were always a day away at the most, or at the least. And so he had one daughter who perished from pneumonia. So back then, if you got sick, it was a big deal, right? And the second daughter was sorry. This is the reality of frontier living. The second daughter was killed by a train in Deux Rivières. And I always wondered why. And a friend of mine from there told me that when the trains come into Deux Rivières, they coast down the hill. And they make very little noise. And at that time, before the dam was built, there was a big waterfall there. So you can really picture how if you were just walking on the tracks, kicking stones, you wouldn't hear the train because the sound of the waterfall and the hill that the trains would coast down, that sort of thing. So, anyways, the point of this is Xavier had quite a busy life, and this stopping place of his was a route was a main hub for bringing supplies and men into the bush to the lumber camps. And when you go there, you look around. There are hundreds and hundreds of horseshoes there as kind of a testimony to how busy this place was. And so I wrote this song about this place from the perspective of a lumberjack heading into the bush for the winter to cut, and then maybe run the log drive in the spring. And so here we go. It's called Halfway There, and. By rail and by steamer, with time I arrive at the place of 2 rivers, the men for the drive. On a horse-drawn sleigh, southward we head to the forest on a toll road as winter sets in. At times I would walk with the sleigh just ahead. 10 miles to the depot and 10 miles to Brent. The stillness of the winter on this winding tote road, I heard of this place, it's halfway home. Oh, Mr. Pilon, your farm is so fine, 10 miles from the noisy CPR line. 10 miles yet to go on to the Brent. I wave at your daughters after time they're well spent. I heard of your daughter, of sickness she died. Her smile still lingers, you still question why. The steel heart that you forged from a horseshoe of spare, Xavier Pilon shaped it with care. Oh, Mr. Pilon, your farm is so fine, 10 miles from the noisy CPR line. 10 miles left to go on to the Brent. I wave at your daughters after time they're well spent. The horses were fed and the hitching repaired. Smoke from the chimneys stained the cold air. Large pots of the harvest steeped by the fire, sometimes with music late in the hour. Oh, Mr. Pilon, your farm is so fine, 10 miles from the noisy CPR line. 10 miles yet to go on to the Brent. I wave at your daughters after time they well spent. This place in the forest now speaks without words. With the fields closing inwards, no sounds now unheard. From the ruins of stone fences and the rhubarb still there, lost are the stories of the place halfway there. Oh, Mr. Pilon, your farm is so fine, 10 miles from the noisy CPR line. 10 miles yet to go on to the Brent. I wave at your daughters after time they're well spent. Lost are the stories of the place halfway there. Thank you much. And I imagine a lot of you have driven up Highway 17 past Riviere up to North Bay, right? Well, there's a place on the side of the highway. Actually, if you look at an old topographic map, you'll see a spot called Battle Hill at the height of land between Bissett Creek and Riviere. And I was curious about that. So I was in the museum or the library, Stonecliff Library, about a decade ago, and looking up information about the area. And then there was a report about, a historic report that they talked about Battle Hill, that it was because the land surveyors who had a real troublesome time trying to put a highway through that rugged part of the Canadian Shield. And there it's super hilly, it's crazy up and down. And so on your way up, right now when you drive through there, you'll notice on the right-hand side, the north side of the highway, there's a white picketed fence area, and that's a graveyard called the Battle Hill Cemetery, where the Kenter family's been buried, and this whole family died of typhoid. Typhoid, is that right? Yes. And I heard actually that there was a mass grave up there, but that might have been the same location, because you know how sometimes stories change over time. But so anyway, so Battle Hill's kind of a special place, and there's some debate about why it's called Battle Hill. But I chose to write a song about the surveyors, because I used to work in the bush as a surveyor. I used to work timber cruising, and then I also worked prospecting. In both cases, you walk straight through everything, up and down. So part of my heart goes out to these land surveyors who tried to upgrade the old wagon road into a Highway 17. So this is called Battle Hill. Tree was a trade at first, by wartime came a type of thirst. A survey crew, 1929, 4 men skill, that blazed the line, a roadway line. A clock they met, gear maps intent, due north they led, where field went. Autumn rains that started to chill, they stood beside a towering hill. Was Battle Hill, Battle Hill. Oh, the land's so strong, so I sing this song, what a place called Battle Hill. The reaches high, forest dark and seen, deep valleys low, with marshes green. Once they swung to flat ground, but one which they met had no way around, had no way around. One more tries and that's too long. The survey crew on shore was song, with their mouths spread out, they chose to run northwest they go. Straight into the hill, into Battle Hill, Battle Hill, Battle Hill. And the land's so strong, so we sing this song, what a place called Battle Hill. The highway now west of the line runs up the hill, climbing to the sky. From the valley below to the mountain high, and then they rest. And I know why. I know why. Oh, here, the land's so strong, so I sing this song, for a place called Marc Audet. Thanks so much. Yeah, I went canoeing down the Chalk River a few years ago, and I came across this old log cabin, and it was the door was off, and they were dismantling it. And I went inside, and there was a bunch of like old newspapers glued to the wall. Maybe it was like cheap, insulation kind of thing, and everything was in French except for it was Montreal Gazette was their choice of insulation. I guess they weren't catching enough fish or something, I don't know. But so, and on the wall in English was this one article about the stagecoach service was being discontinued in 1896. So there was stagecoach service up and down the Ottawa Valley along the Pembroke-Mattawa Road. And the Pembroke-Mattawa Road which was the precursor to the King's Highway 17, which is now Queen's Highway 7. I wonder if they're going to rename it now, too. Now we have a king. Well, that's a puzzling thing. Anyways, yeah, so there was a wagon road. Oh yeah, that road was built only for the purpose of supplying the lumber camps. So at that time, in the 1800s, they had no scheme of putting highway that was all the way across Canada. It was like, all they needed to do was to have a way of getting supplies to the lumber camps, and the wagon road that they built was for that purpose, and eventually it became what it is now. So there's sections of the wagon road you can explore yourself, and they're still in the bush in places, and it's so neat to walk along this old road and feel the presence of the ghosts, the people that rode in these stagecoaches and that sort of thing. Anyway. Yeah, a lot of these songs I'm playing for you are all songs I've written about this district of ours called North Renfrew, and it's where I grew up in this area, and I know the bush quite well. So over the years we found all these neat places, and they are the source of inspiration for writing about these songs. And this next song I'm going to do is it's a different thing altogether. It's a story of a POW camp, and there were POW camps all around this whole area too, right? And during World War II, at first they held prisoners in Britain and other places, but then I guess the war wasn't going well, and there were the Allied forces were concerned about Britain being taken and all the prisoners held there being released back into the war, and so they started shipping the Axis forces men to North America to hold them in POW camps. And up the Nipissing River, I heard of a story about a POW camp that was there. So this lumber camps was a convenient place to put these prisoners, because a lot of the lumber camps were in very remote locations. And in fact, when at these camps, the men were given choices to either work with the horses or work cutting trees or work in the kitchen. So they actually had things to do, and they had a warm place to stay. They had food, shelter, and they had a safe place to be. But there was a German fighter pilot and a buddy of his decided they were going to break out of prison. And this is in May, early May, and in the middle of Algonquin Park up the Nipissing River, and they walked for 3 days north, following the North Star, and they only traveled at night. Yeah, can you imagine walking through the bush at night for 3 days, crossing streams and swamps? So either the water's going to be freezing cold, it's either going to be flooded, or the bugs are going to be getting you, one or the other. So it wouldn't have been a pleasant outing. So I'm assuming they did this when there was a full moon, right? So you'd have to, and he was a fighter pilot, so they knew how to survive in the bush, and that. But they had no idea where he was in Canada, because they weren't trained for that. They were trained for how to deal with being captured in Britain, where the farms were that they could go to get back into back to Germany. So anyways, this guy decided he was going to break out of prison, and him and his buddy, they walked north for 3 days, and they eventually got to the CNR railroad track that goes through Brent, and they hopped on a train, because the trains don't go very fast. So they rode a train all the way to Winnipeg, and they got caught there and put into the POW camp. But anyways, I wrote this story just, so he came back to Brent 40 years later, and talked to Jake, Jake Pigeon, who runs the Brent General Store, and he tried to hire a guide to take him back to this lumber camp. But Jake, the roads are all gone, the bridges are out, and so the guide went away, left without this trip, but he left this story for Jake, and Jake told me the story, and now you know it, and this is the song I wrote about it. It's called North Star. I can't imagine the time he had, the blackened hills, the shapeless time. North he walked under darkened sky, with the North Star, his guiding light. From overseas, and moved on by rail, then a rough ride down an old wagon trail. They kept them in an old lumber camp, prisoners of war held far, far inland. He left the camp one night in May, With some tools he forged and some food he saved. It was days alone, walking north, hiding all day, then stumbling in the dark. I can't imagine the time he had, the blackened hills, the shapeless town. North he walked under darkened sky with the North Star, his guiding light. Not knowing where, not knowing when, his journey north would somehow end. In a train he heard a distant sound, rumbling hope and maybe homebound. I can't imagine the time he had, the blackened hills, the shapeless town. North he walked under darkened sky with the North Star, his guiding light. Those nights of cold, those times of fear, his courage soared as the tracks drew near. And when he stood with the rail line smell, he knew he had this story to tell. I can't imagine the time he had, the blackened hills, the shapeless town. North he walked under darkened sky with the North Star, his guiding light. With the North Star, his guiding light. Thanks very much. I'm going to Brent in a few days. I'll be seeing Jake and maybe get a few more stories from him. He told me last time I was there about another couple lumber camps that I'll be exploring when I go in there. It's so nice to do that, and wander around the bush and look at things. And I have another song I'm going to do here called "Talk to Me." And it's a song I wrote about tall trees. In the Deep River, it's a common sight, these beautiful big pine trees we have. And what I found when I've been visiting these old ruins in the bush is often there's a big stand of big pine at these camps. And I'm guessing that they were left for shade for the horses and maybe to block the wind, that sort of thing. So if you're out looking for one of these historic sites, just look for where the big tall pine trees are and that'll narrow the search a bit. So this song is called "Talk to Me," and it's my wish that these trees could somehow talk and tell us their stories, because if they could, they'd have lots of things to say. And the song refers to a spot on the Des Moines River, and it refers to Halfway House as well. These spots that I wish I knew more about, you know. I'm inclined to think of those years of distant days, countless times I've come and gone, from birch bark canoes to vessels more of new, and now these old walking shoes. Those pines stand together, a sight for me, all seeing, all knowing, and some will fall. And now I stand and wait for your words of centuries late. I wish that you could tell me all. If only you could tell the tale. Standing over watching time prevail. I wish that I could hear the things that you would say, but here I am in your shade. Here I am in your shade. At Camp 4 there stands those trees of ancient land, above an old stone pile. A mystery remains, perhaps of river draw days, of this place where man stopped for a while. If only you could tell the tale. Standing over watching time prevails. I wish that I could hear the things that you would say, but here I am in your shade. Here I am in your shade. At marker 23, an old temple farm there be. Once a busy stopping place. All there is today are the ruins of decay, and those tall pines that lived through the day. If only you could tell the tale. Standing over watching time prevails. I wish that I could hear the things that you would say, but here I am in your shade. Here I am in your shade. Here I am in your shade. Thanks very much. The other thing that amazes me about the Ottawa Valley is the, I guess it's the style, it's the way it was, you know, the immigration happened, and I didn't realize this till recently that immigration into the Ottawa Valley was held back by both the British and the French because they wanted to maintain control over the fur trade. It was only early 1800s when they started to allow people to move in, other than squatters that had come ahead of time. But the Irish were the first that come in great numbers, because in Ireland things weren't going very well with the way the government was handling the lands there and taxing people, and then of course the failed crops, the potato famine and that sort of thing. So there's many stories about the Irish that are haunting to me, and what amazes me when you travel down some of these settlement roads that were established to help promote immigration, like the Opeongo line. There's the Addington Road, the Bob Cajun Road, the Buckhorn Road, Hastings, Mississippi, Monk, Muskoka, Nipissing, Opeongo. Like, there's all kinds of these roads they built, the government in the mid 1800s to promote settlement, and they needed this to support the fur trade, because they needed to have more local supplies of not only food for the horses and for the men, but also they needed to have the teamsters, the people with the horses to run supply runs up into the camps and that sort of thing. So it was having immigration and settlement in the Ottawa Valley was an integral part of the big logging boom that was happening in the mid 1800s. And so when I look at these stone fences that are not so much around here, because this is the great big sand plain from this monster river, the Ottawa River, but little further south of here, you can see these stone piles, and when I see the stone fences, I feel the hardship that these people had to endure when they came here and had a few months to scratch together a dwelling and to get a few root crops in the ground before the first winter. But for those people, it was an upgrade for what they were coming from in Europe. So this song I wrote is called Stone Fences, and it attempts to tell the story of people that were trying to find a way of making a living here and surviving. Ride with hope from distant lands, promise of wealth grown from this land, forests to wait and stones to pile, ships to build, well to install. I toil for you, I sweat for you, I bleed for you from this land. I will make do, I must come through, I sing for you from this land. First winter was hard, barely a barn, one horse and two cows, potatoes and lard. Faith was strong and help was nearby, no rest for the weary, forever must try. I toil for you, I sweat for you, I bleed for you from this land. I will make do, I must come through, I sing for you from this land. 5 years on land, most fields have been cleared, stone fences were small, crops were sincere, children were growing, and soon they would work, 8 backs in the fields with horses of worth. I toil for you, I sweat for you, I bleed for you from this land. I will make do, I must come through, I'll sing for you from this land. 20 years on, the fences were tall, crops were secure, the farm had no stall. Prosperity, it came and went, but the floods and the droughts on lands mostly spent. I toil for you, I sweat for you, I bleed for you from this land. I will make do, I must come through, I sing for you from this land. A century gone by, the fields are at rest, the houses collapsed, the tools are of rust. Trees have reclaimed the lands of sod, but the stone fences stand, marking the cross. I toil for you, I sweat for you, I bleed for you from this land. I will make do, I must come through, I sing for you from this land. Thanks very much. That was going to be a real sad song. I hope that's okay with you guys. That's the thing about frontier living was, I mentioned this earlier on, it wasn't easy. So I played, I got to entertain the Pembroke Kiwanis group about 3 years ago. And at the end of playing just a handful of songs, this woman came up to me and told me a story. And I get that more and more. That's the fun thing about doing this type of entertainment or this type of music is people will come to me with stories, and sometimes I'll pursue those and turn them into songs, which is what this is. This is a story about an accident that happened up at Stonecliff, and a woman by the name of Rose McKenna who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And back in the day, if you had a boulder that was in the way, if it was too big to drag to your stone fence, the thing to do would be to dig a big hole and roll the stone into the hole, right? And I guess her husband, William McKenna, had been doing this on a weekend, and I guess they didn't get the job finished that day, so they were going to finish it the next day. And the next day, Rose sent her 3 of her daughters off to school, and the young lad Martin was missing. So she went on a search for him, and she was afraid that he might have wandered off into the bush, kind of thing, and because he was just a toddler. Anyways, all we know is later in the afternoon, one of the neighbors came by looking for one of his livestock, and they found Rose in the hole. The stone had rolled on her, and Martin was sitting with her in the hole. And it was interesting. The interesting thing about researching some of these songs about history is different family members of that line all have different stories for what happened to Rose, but nobody actually knows specifically what happened. But one story was that she was helping away in a train, which was nearby. Train track was nearby. Maybe a train rattled the ground enough that the thing rolled. Another story was that she slipped. So that's the story I went with this song. But, and when I researched this song too, I went to social media. It was interesting to try and find a descendant of Rose McKenna, and I did. It was the Charbonneaus is part of that family line, and so I got to speak a bit about, learn more about that. But when I was researching the song, I found out that was actually quite a common type of accident, because I heard also there was someone near Westmeath that also had died from one of these stone rolling incidents, and there was another one near Pembroke that almost died. So the point is, back in the day with the frontier living, it was dangerous and with lots of perils. So here we go. This is a song about Rose McKenna. William McKenna, a CPR boss, the stone to be no road, which came at great loss. With men from his team and feelings of worth, they took to the boulder to reshape the earth. Well, they dug in behind it, 5 feet into ground, with boards to secure it and ropes tied and sound. And the job was suspended to finish next day. They thought I was steady with the ropes tied away. Old frontier living, the time of the past, with steam trains and wagons and fields of tall grass. The living was tough, and there was much to be said. The time of misfortune that left poor Rose dead. Young Rose McKenna in her 37th year, a mother of 4, furlong from here. But her toddler was missing, Martin his name, out for a search to catch him astray. Well, she looked in the barn and she looked in the shed. She looked down the road, what was that he said? A dreaded thought came, but a giant gray stone. Where was her Martin? A question to know. Oh, on to the time, on to the time of the past. The steam trains and wagons and fields of tall grass. But the living was tough, there was much to be said. At the time of misfortune, they left poor Rose dead. Well, she ran past the garden, and there was the stone, with dirt piles and shovels and boards and ropes. And she stood at the crater to look and to call. A stumble had happened, and then she'd fall. Knocking the boards, and the stone did that roll. Poor Rosemary Canal was crushed in a hole. Upon which young Martin did find his mom dead, 15th of September, with a cliff overhead. Oh, fun to live in the time of the past, the steam trains and wagons and fields of tall grass. But living was tough, there was much to be said, at the time of misfortune that left poor Rose dead. Young Ron lived on to just 2 years back, now rests with his mother forever to last. But one thought remains, which we must not forget. Poor Rose Buchanan, by fortune beset, was but time of misfortune that left poor Rose dead. Thank you. One of the awkward things about that song was playing it for the family, and that's an interesting thing as a songwriter. And but they were really thrilled to have the story of their family in a song, and so it went over well. But it was a difficult thing for me to do, actually. We have time for another song, and I don't want to run this out too long for you guys, but. The other thing that happened in the Ottawa Valley that was common to a lot of places in Canada in the with the industrial age was land expropriation, and so around here it was 1903, I think, is when Garrison Petawawa was established, and so there are large tracts of land there claimed by the government, and in fact they were looking closely at Barry's Bay. And they chose Petawawa over Barry's Bay, and then as I talked about earlier on, there the Mackay to Stonecliff and that area there was all expropriated in the mid '40s for the hydroelectric development, and then atomic energy was built in the mid '40s as well. So there are large blocks of land around here that were expropriated by the government for various reasons, and so I wrote this song about that how for the people that had settled here, they had built their houses and cleared the fields by hand, long before machinery and that sort of thing. So to be told to move after 60 years of living in a spot and after having done everything by hand, wasn't a popular thing, and so this song is it sort of speaks to that, and it's called Not Forgotten. And I want to say thank you, by the way, for you guys for coming out, and I really appreciate you listening, and hope I connected with you somehow with this, and it's really exciting about this library program that you guys have going on, the research into histories and that sort of thing, because it's really important. And I feel really bad because I was supposed to meet with Gerald Nadeau about 3 years ago, and I was up his way fishing, and I spoke to him in his yard a bit, and I arranged to come and see him later on to talk about a place he knew something about, and then I didn't follow up with that right away, and unfortunately he passed away about a year later, so I missed out on an opportunity. So it's great that the libraries and other museum associations are putting the effort into interviewing people and documenting spoken word history and that sort of thing. So anyways, kudos to you guys, and thanks for having me, and thanks for coming and listening. Life was thin, but efforts made. Traditions ran with music played. Men at camps for timber cut, The cycle ran at times with love. Now I wonder how it felt. Spirits left to others, a cold hand I was dealt. Steamboat wharfs and stagecoach lines, and then automobiles and highway lines. More fields cleared as families spread. The cycle made this life content. Now I wonder how it felt. Spirits left to others, a cold hand I was dealt. Like a stream without water, or a child without laughter. It was then and thereafter, but the truth is not forgotten. Survey crews and the government, the papers held it was their land then. Now use paid and new lands held, but a coldness followed, I can tell. Homesteads gone, most fields grown in, and in the middle of it all, a factory stands. Concrete towers for ancient eyes, watch while keeping perfect time. Now I wonder how it felt. Spirits left to others, a cold hand that was dealt. Like a stream without water, or a child without laughter. It was then and thereafter, but the truth is not forgotten. Now I wonder how it felt. Spirits left to others, a cold hand I was dealt. Thank you so much.
Thanks for singing Stone Fences.
I could do another one if you want. That'd be okay? Yeah. Okay, right on. A little awkward there.
Encore.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is a neat thing. I bought an antique trunk about 2 years ago from a farm in Westmeath, and it had on the top of the trunk a brass plate that had A.C. Irvine, and it's a beautiful trunk. It's got brass hinges and brass fittings, brass lock, brass bolts, and everything's handmade. All the bolts are handmade, the nuts are handmade. You can tell they're handmade because the hole is offset. It's in the middle. Everything's imperfect, right? So I Googled A.C. Irvine. The first thing I came up with was Irvine hotels in the United States, and I thought, oh, can't be right. And then a week later, I tried it again, and this time I stumbled across Mount Everest climber Sandy Irvine, who, with George Mallory, made a summit attempt in 1924. And no one knows whether they actually made it to the summit, but they both perished on the mountain. So how did this trunk of a famous Mount Everest climber get to Westmeath, because he was a scholar. He was an English fellow. He was an expert in oxygen systems, which is why he was brought into the team. And he lived in, he was going to school in Oxford. He lived in England, and so how did that trunk get to Westmeath? And so, anyways, one of the historic societies in Westmeath is helping to try and figure this out. So they've contacted their followers to see if anyone has a story about what this trunk's all about, or whether there's more trunks, because this was number 17 on the side. And then, so I ended up, I contacted a bunch of people that had written stories or books about Everest, and I stumbled across eventually a descendant of Sandy Irvine, and she confirmed that this was his trunk, and number 17 might have been room number 17 at Oxford University where he was going to school, rather than trunk number 17, because that's a lot of trunks. Can you imagine that? Must have been a privileged individual to have 17 trunks, but anyway. So I wrote the song about just questioning what is this all about, and so it's kind of it's a historic song, but it's not really it doesn't answer the question, it asks the question, so it's kind of a reverse song in a sense. So. Old trunk of the shed, now cast away, brass fittings darkened and grim, weathered and bent, silent relent, with only a nameplate to share. Speak to me now, tell me a tale of adventure and travel afar. How sad was the fate of your master the great, A.C. Sandy Irvine. How did you come to this place so far, crossing the pond on your own? A century past now, I still question how. How did you come to this home? Oxford for school, for the old golden rule, with your brother Hugh Irvine. Train rides for sure, for Shrewsbury tour, with no travel with only a tour. Sandy one day left you, they say, for a trip to southern Tibet, to climb the north face of this very last place, and never to return to your call. How did you come to this place so far, crossing the pond on your own? A century past now, I still question how. How did you come to this home? Well, that was back then, a century, my friend, a trunk full of secrets and spoils. I must speculate of your history of late, from England to old Westmeath Farm. It now would seem that you've come to me for another trip of a sort, repainted and clean, brass shiny gleam, and the story of your master Irvine. This place so far, crossing the pond on your own. A century past now, I still question how. How did you come to this home? How did you come to this place so far, crossing the pond on your own? A century past now, I still question how. How did you come to this home? Thank you very much.